Greetings everyone, I bid you welcome to the first AI War 2 video I've done in exactly 4 months. And if that seems like a long time to you, as indeed it is, it pales in comparison to the fabled and mythological creature known as an AI War 2 patch on the stable branch deemed fit for the gaming public at large. Lest you think I exaggerate at all, this is a direct quote from developer Chris Park on the release yesterday of version 4.0 returning from beta. How can I really summarize 90 beta releases that span 230 days, July 17th, 2021 to today, and which have full notes that are 184,000 words long? I can't even just skim those full release notes because they are longer than 2 trade paperback novels. End quote. Hence the title of this video. This isn't going to be a highlight reel, it's more like the highlights of the highlights of the highlights of the highlights reel. But I will try to present the most important elements as I see them for you to dive back into AI War 2 and some new and exciting features that I'm sure people will want to be aware of. A word of warning, however, though, if you want to continue any old saves, you need to do those on the old version because they will not work. Save games are not compatible with this new patch. There's also a wide variety of changes in mods. Some are gone, there are some new ones, balance changes, visual enhancements, logic improving, and also quite a bit better performance of the game as a whole. For those interested in multiplayer, that is still in beta. It's much closer than it was before, it's running much better than it was before, but it's not quite considered ready for prime time just yet. Onward then to specific changes, and by the way, if you're looking for information on a specific topic, check out the chapter divisions in the timeline below or in the description, and that'll let you know where you want to go for that. But the unit encyclopedia is something that's been requested for a fair amount of time by a number of players. And basically just a general reference in the game, say there's a specific unit that you're interested in and it's not in your particular galaxy, but you want to know what it does or you want to compare some units, then this allows that. It also is present in your game if you're playing out a galaxy as well, not just on the main menu. There's an icon for it on the top resource bar. And there's various different ways we can sort these by class over here, or by all of these different categories, or we can search for text in the description, lore, or name of something. So let's say we wanted to know about the drones. Well, there they all are. Let's see, maybe Guardians. Or everything that is a Tesla, or whatever it might be. And this also updates dynamically with any mods that you load or unload, or any patch balance changes that may happen, so it's going to keep itself up to date throughout the future with whatever is present in the database for the game at the time. Then custom start into our lobby, and there are some new things to see here as well for sure. So this is the CPU load indicator, and this is just going to give us a rough indication of how taxing the current setup is going to be for the computer. Of course, now it's very low because we only have player and one moderate AI. But, for example, if we added a bunch of different factions or made the galaxy larger, then this score would go up and it would warn you, hey, you know, this is going to be a high load, you might want to reconsider it. Now, this does not reflect your current PC. It's going to give you the same score whether or not you have a really fast computer with lots of capabilities or you're more of a lower end or anywhere in between. But it is useful just as a general guideline to help you avoid unexpected performance issues while you're playing out the galaxy that you have selected. Then we have some new options. We have Ironman. You can't save manually. All of the cheats in the debug menu have been disabled. Your basic scenario where you have to continue on from your most previous save. Doomsday mode is a new form of time pressure, requires the Spire Rises expansion, and there's a number of items that have been added to that first expansion. This is one of them, but for example, time pressure with the risk analyzers and the Scourge is something some people enjoy, but a lot of people don't, because it's really against the player. And this is a mode where the galaxy is going to shrink, and planets will periodically be destroyed, but it could be one that you really want to keep, or it could be one that you'd really like to get rid of. Maybe it's a blockade system that's preventing you from progressing further. But you definitely have a clock on you, and you need to win before a certain point, because the galaxy is imploding. Now, what you're going to do after that galaxy is dead, shortly after you win, I don't know, but nonetheless, it is a fun way for some people to play. Then we have a variety of random things from map population. Variable gravity wells. I think a lot of you probably know about that already, but this is a base game feature. And you have the default size of compact, but you can see you can go much higher, or you can go somewhat lower. And the classic game, for people who played the original AI War, had much larger gravity wells, slower movement around the galaxy, battles, longer range ships were even more powerful. This is something that, if you want that kind of a fight, you can make it, or you can leave it at the way it normally is. There's all types of possibilities for you to choose from there. Then there's various other roguelites here, and the random factions. So this is especially useful for players who, they want a bunch of factions, but you don't want to necessarily decide what they are. Just give me something. Well, we have different options here. We can change the allegiances down here as well, but can be completely random or easy, medium, hard, brutal. They'll add a bunch of factions into your game, and you can discover them as you proceed forward with your campaign. Then we also have just plain some new factions. And right now, the new ones that I can show you, there are more, of course, coming with the Nine Zul Abyss expansion. But the new ones that have been added so far are the Spire Rises one. So, again, that DLC getting some additional items. Chromatic Horror here is basically a chaos generator. It's like, you could think of it as a souped up Devour Golem, I suppose, but it's going to go around. It's not doing so much destroying things, although it does do some of that with the smaller ships. But it's going to scatter different items to different areas in a particular planet. So your turrets are going to get moved around, and your force field is going to get moved around. Maybe you're trying to protect a data center or a power generator, that gets moved around. On the other hand, on the AI side, maybe there's some really dangerous guard posts too close to a wormhole, or you don't like where a mass driver is or whatever. It's going to move those around as well. So again, it's just chaos. Tends to be really annoying for most players, so word of warning there. But if you're looking for a little more craziness in your galaxy, Chromatic Horror will give it to you, and you can add as many of these to the galaxy basically as you want. You're not limited to one. Then we also have the Spire Dyson Sphere. You can see by the description here, there's gray and chromatic types. And if you do the Splintering Spire, that will have one of each of those, plus the Dark Spire automatically, and they'll be involved in a galactic war. And this will facilitate, you can see, you can hack the Gray Spire for warheads, the Chromatic Spire for interplanetary weapons, and basically warheads are used to explode to deal with large numbers of enemies or particularly tough enemies. And if you're familiar with Classic, you're used to that mechanic, but it's another form of super weapon, and there is a price that you pay for it. Then interplanetary weapons is what it sounds like. You can fire to a different planet from where the weapon is. So these are both items that were really desired by people who backed the game, and now they have been added in. And we are not done yet, because we have new player types, which you can think of as a different faction for the player to play as. And there's going to be more added here eventually as well. Some exciting stuff coming this way from the Nine Zul Abyss, but that will have to wait until the time comes for it. The Human Ark Empire calls back to when AI War 2 was first in development, long before it was released. You have a mobile ship. We're all familiar with the arcs that are in the game, and this is the same type of idea. But you can move around and decide where you're going to build your initial planet, and you don't lose the game by losing your homeworld. You lose the game by losing your arc. So your command and control, your king unit, if you will, is mobile. So that presents some risk reward, by how much you're going to enter into combat. It also initially was not hugely favored simply because you have this big powerful arc at the beginning, and then you're adding on ships and turrets that don't feel very good in comparison to it. So it does sort of mess with the progression of the campaign in terms of, getting more and more powerful as it goes on. It doesn't feel like as much of a spike doing that, but it's a lot of fun for some players to do a more nomadic focused playstyle. Then the Spire-infused Empire is you like Fallen Spire, but you don't like the relic chases and going after all the debris hunts. You don't want to deal with all of that. Well, that's exactly what this is. Just build up your Spire cities and have yourself a big long war epic with AI. And then Spectator is just if you want to watch everything going on in the galaxy. Watch a chaotic galaxy, but you don't want to take any participation in it yourself. And then we have campaign types down here, and I've referred to these somewhat in the past as modes, and there's a lot of information about these. Check out the how to play section, check out the tips if you try starting as these, and there's tool tips here to give you a brief introduction. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these right now because I have a special video focusing on just them that's going to be out next week. But for now, let's just note what the different kinds are. Their sandbox really opens up a lot of balance sliders. It's not limited nearly as much. But Humanity Ascendant is the default way of playing. It's the way the game has been. If you enjoy AI War 2 as it is, you just stick with this and you don't have to worry about any of the other ones. They're opt-in, but you're always going to be set up for Humanity Ascendant by default. Then the higher ones, well, higher is the wrong word. More demanding, I would say more strategic, is what these other ones should be regarded as. Challenger, Expert, Logistician, and Deathwish. And again, if you're interested in more of those, stick around for the video next week, where I'll cover all of that. If you are a player who really likes customizing everything, choosing your weaponry, outfitting your ships, then modules returning to AI War will probably be exciting for you. So this is just a starting Spire cruiser, but there are many other options for this. The Riot Control Cruiser currently involves some modules now at this point, and it's also going to be a huge part of what's going to be happening in the 9 Zool Abyss expansion, so there's going to be a lot more modules coming along with that. If we just remove this then, say I don't want my heavy coil beam, I can take a light coil beam, and then maybe I'll improve my hull and shield a bit, or I'll get this gravity ability, or I'll put in a tractor beam, or whatever. So you have the option to choose what you want and you don't want on your ship, of course, at a cost. Then there are finally a few items that the AI has, just nasty things that they can do to throw us off guard. So there's Brutal Guardian Layers, and by the way, all of these are not going to show up except on high difficulty, I think 8 or above in general, and then also they will show up on some of the more demanding campaign types. But if you're just playing a default game at 7, you don't have to worry about these wrecking you. So the Brutal Guardian Layer is going to periodically spawn really dangerous guardians for the Hunter fleet to use. And if you find the Brutal Guardian Layer, then you can destroy it. There is an AIP cost. You also get some rewards for doing it, so it's plus or minus whether you're actually going to want to do that. Then there's Ultimate Fortress, which utilizes the new orbiting mechanic. And I'm not really going to get into showing this here. It's going to be used again a lot in the 9 Zool Abyss expansion coming up. But basically the way that works is you have a fortress. We're used to AI fortresses, but then that's only the core because there are a few more fortresses of different types orbiting it, circling around it nonstop. And you have to destroy those orbiting ones on an ultimate fortress before you can actually damage the core one and destroy the thing. So think of it as a Hydra with multiple heads. Then, if you wait too long, it will rebuild those orbiting fortresses. So it quite literally is the ultimate fortress. Then there's also Dire CPAs, which at this point are still in testing, but they are going to be released into the base game before too much longer, I expect. And basically what happens with those is that I don't remember exactly what they're calling them, but the AI has bunkers that it will fill up with extra ships for CPAs. So think of it as combining a CPA with an instigator mechanic. You have to go out and destroy these, maybe they're called repositories. I don't remember what term they finally decided on. But if you destroy them before the CPA hits, then those extra ships are not going to be something you have to deal with at the CPA. Otherwise, the CPAs will be stronger and more dangerous. So it's one more thing to encourage you to get out into the galaxy and have to raid the AI and all of the positive and negatives that are going to go along with that. And I think that's as fair of a synopsis as I can give without being hopefully too long-winded. I'd appreciate everybody's thoughts down in the comments below. And again, Hope you'll stick around for the focus video on the campaign types, which I expect to have ready next week.